There's a quiet moment that happens more often than people talk about. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dramatic. It usually arrives when everything finally slows down. Maybe you've just finished something important, a long day, a project you've been working on, or even something small that still took effort to complete. For a brief second, there's a sense that something good might follow. Pride, relief, satisfaction. But instead, there's a subtle emptiness, and almost immediately, a voice shows up. Soft, familiar, persistent. That's it. You could have done better. Why doesn't this feel like enough? And even if nothing went wrong, even if things went well, the feeling still lingers, like something is missing, but you can't quite explain what it is. And over time, that moment stops feeling unusual and starts feeling normal. There was once someone who seemed to have things under control. They showed up every day. They handled responsibilities. They met expectations. They tried to do the right things, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. From the outside, their life looked stable, maybe even admirable. People trusted them. People relied on them. People often said things like, "You've got this figured out," or "You're doing better than you think." And they would respond the way most people do, with a small smile, a nod, a simple thank you. But inside, the experience was different. Every completed task felt temporary, like it faded too quickly. Every mistake, even small ones, seemed to carry extra weight. And every moment of stillness gave space for thoughts they couldn't easily turn off. At night, when everything quieted down, their mind would replay the day, not just what happened, but how it could have been better, a conversation that could have gone differently, a task that could have been handled more efficiently, a moment where they felt they should have done more. And slowly, without realizing it, a pattern began to form. Their attention started focusing less on what was already done, and more on what was still missing. They began setting new goals, raising their standards, pushing themselves further, because somewhere along the way, they made a quiet assumption: if I just improve a little more, I'll finally feel okay. But each time they reached a new milestone, the feeling didn't settle, it shifted. The goalposts moved, the standard adjusted, and instead of feeling satisfied, they found themselves thinking about the next step. Not because they were failing, but because their mind had learned to never fully pause. So even in moments of progress, there was still a sense of distance, like they were always approaching something, but never quite arriving. What's happening here isn't a lack of effort, and it's not a personal flaw. It's a pattern that often forms quietly over time. In many cases, it begins early in life, in environments where approval wasn't always constant. Not necessarily harsh environments, sometimes just subtle ones. Moments where praise was tied to performance, where recognition followed achievement, where mistakes were noticed more clearly than effort. Without anyone explicitly saying it, the mind begins to connect a few ideas together. Doing well leads to acceptance, improving leads to approval, and not meeting expectations leads to something being withdrawn. So the brain adapts. It creates a strategy that feels logical. If I keep improving, I'll stay safe, accepted, and valued. At first, this can look like motivation. It can lead to discipline, consistency, and growth. But underneath that drive, something else develops. A quiet belief that worth is not stable. It must be maintained. This is where the internal moving standard begins. Every time you reach a goal, your mind doesn't just stop and celebrate. It adjusts. What's next? How can this be better? Why not aim higher? Not because progress is bad, but because the mind has learned to stay in motion. At the same time, another process is happening in the background. The brain naturally compares, but it doesn't compare in a balanced way. It tends to highlight what others appear to have, while focusing on what you feel you lack. It observes confidence in others and uncertainty within yourself. It sees finished outcomes in others and internal effort in you. This creates an uneven perspective, so even when you are growing, improving, and achieving, your internal experience may not fully reflect that progress. There's also something about how the brain processes feedback. Negative experiences tend to leave a stronger imprint than positive ones. A single moment of criticism can carry more emotional weight than several moments of praise. Over time, this shapes an internal narrative that can feel skewed, not because reality is entirely negative, but because attention has been trained to notice certain things more than others. And when external validation becomes a key source of reassurance, its inconsistency becomes a problem, because external feedback depends on timing, people, context, and circumstances, which means it can never be fully controlled. So, when it's absent, or when it doesn't match expectations, the mind fills the gap with doubt, and the cycle continues. The feeling of not being enough doesn't usually disappear when life improves. It begins to change when the internal definition of enough starts to shift. Right now, that definition may be built on a moving target, a standard that adjusts as soon as you get close to it. But what if enough was never meant to be something you arrive at after achieving everything? What if it wasn't located at the end of your progress, but existed alongside it? Because your value was never designed to function like a scoreboard. You're not something that becomes worthy after reaching a certain level of success. You are someone who is already living, learning, adapting, and experiencing life in real time. Growth doesn't require self-rejection. It doesn't require you to believe that where you are right now is inadequate. You can improve your skills, your habits, your direction, without turning that process into a judgment of your worth. And as that understanding becomes clearer, something subtle begins to change. The voice that once felt absolute starts to lose some of its certainty. It still shows up at times, but it doesn't have to be treated as truth. It becomes something you can observe, rather than something you must obey. Not every thought deserves agreement. Not every internal message reflects reality. Some of them are simply patterns that have been repeated for a long time. So if you've been carrying this quiet feeling, the sense that no matter what you do, it's never quite enough, pause for a moment, not to correct yourself, not to evaluate your progress, not to figure everything out, just to be here with yourself, as you are. Notice how far you've already come, even in ways that don't always get recognized. Notice the consistency it has taken to keep going. Notice the effort that has carried you through moments that weren't easy. You don't have to reach a final version of yourself before you're allowed to feel at ease. You don't have to complete an invisible standard before you can experience your own life fully. And maybe, with time, enough won't feel like something you're chasing. Maybe it will begin to feel like something quieter, a shift in perspective, a soft understanding, a moment where you realize you've been here all along, continuing, growing, and existing, without needing to prove it every step of the way.